So it's time. We've done the presentations, we've convinced people, we've gathered the votes, we've evaluated them, and now it's time for the big reveal, for the ceremony. But before we reveal the winners of this year's 3MT, the sixth in our series, we have a talk. As every year, we have a keynote speaker during the 3MT ceremony. And this year, I'm very happy to welcome Ajla, who I caught up just prior to getting onto the call with you, or just prior to getting everyone out from the waiting room. And her journey, her research, and just her academic journey is probably one of the most fascinating ones. The two of us competed together in the 2021 iteration of the 3MT, and back then I was just mesmerized by the presentation, which was mysterious, it was about space, and it was very, very unique. And she's unique as a character. So I hope you really enjoyed the presentation, as well as I. And then we'll get started with everything else after that. But without further ado, Ajla, the floor is yours, and I would ask you to get on here and impress the people with your amazing journey.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, first of all, guys, for the lovely introduction. I'm very happy to be here today, and honestly, it's a privilege to be asked to be a keynote speaker in one of these presentations because it truly allows young people to connect, and I think in ways like this, it's also very important to keep communication styles open. So I was asked to give a talk about my academic career, where it is right now, and the lessons and the challenges that I've sort of faced throughout my academic career. So I think initially it's the most important to sort of start from the very beginning. And I think my first sort of introduction to what science really is came during my bachelor's. I was very much interested in being a fundamental biologist, and I was very curious with the connection to translational medicine. So that's where I was mostly drawn to. I was drawn to labs that were multidisciplinary, multinational, and very interdisciplinary. So the first time that I was exposed to this was during the Amgen program, as well as my NASA project that I did. So basically, during my bachelor's, I was very lucky to be part of the Amgen program and to have this project that was essentially I was mentored with a person that was collaborating with various NASA facilities, and I was tasked to make up my own as academic and scientific project from scratch, send it off into space, and then just essentially test what happens. So both of these initial trials of what it is like to be a young researcher came during COVID. And as we all know, something happened in 2020, and most of these projects were deferred to 2021. So I think I was initially in a very unique position where I was basically tested both academically and my endurance to what it is like to be a scientist. So I had to do all these tasks and also finish up my studies and be introduced to these challenges. So the Amgen program that I did is a very well-known and international program that essentially collects people from all over the world. They are given a specific project and they are allocated to one of the leading universities. I was lucky enough to be in a lab at ETH Zurich in Switzerland. And this was my very first lab and essentially my very first mentoring experience. So I think it really taught me what it is like to be a scientist from a starting position, which is where I was. After my bachelor's, I applied to a very unique master's program, and I was drawn to it because it was mostly focused on research, and it was very interdisciplinary, international as well. So it's called the International Master of Innovative Medicine, and it is a collaboration of 3 universities in Sweden, the Netherlands, and Germany. So it's a 2-year program, and essentially the first year is mostly you'll have coursework, and then after that it's a year and a half just research. So The Netherlands was essentially my first exposure to a academic environment that was very different from um, Bosnia and Herzegovina. This was the first time I was moving abroad, so I had a very cool environment where the people there and the academics that were teaching me came from all over the world. So I was immediately exposed to various schools of thought. I was challenged academically, and I made lifelong friends. And I think the biggest takeaways from my time there came from so many things outside of academia, because I was exposed to an environment that I hadn't been there before, and it was very it was a fantastic experience. And it was similar to what it was before with my bachelor's, where I was allocated a project and I was working on it. I was essentially always in the lab after a certain point in the semester. So I think with all of the places that I've been to, I think I usually try to think of 5 lessons that I've learned from each place. And I think I have 5 places that I want to talk to you about. And the Netherlands was, I think my takeaway lesson was that, you know, when people say that there are no stupid questions, well, my first mentor in the Netherlands actually taught me a very valuable lesson, that it's you have to ask 5 stupid questions a day. So that was my sort of, I think that was very freeing to me as a young scientist. I was a very young student, and it was very important for mentors to instill that sort of confidence where nothing is stupid and everything is stupid at the same time, because you're so new to this world. So I think that was my biggest takeaway. And then after that, the program was very flexible with all of its students. So the master program essentially just told us, if you can find the lab that wants you, well, you can go anywhere, essentially. So for me, I was like, my mind is blown, and okay, I was a bit overwhelmed, and I really wanted to pick, we could pick 2 labs in the second year, basically. So I had the master project and a thesis project. So the master project, I contacted my previous lab from the Amgen program, and I said, hi, can I come back? And they were very willing and very happy to hear that I could come back to them and work on a more serious project. And I did. And I think this lab really, what they taught me is that it's very important to be very picky in a way of which mentor you choose and the lab environment, because every lab that I was in, they were all very, very different. They could be small labs, big labs, and the environment is also very different. But what it's important to know is that the way that you talk to your mentor is going to dictate a lot of how your project is going to go. So if you can talk to your mentor, and if you can connect to your mentor academically, then that's the best that you can do. And I was very lucky to have a mentor that really, I think all of these big shot universities such as ETH Zurich, they have these fantastic individuals that sometimes they don't have the time, or they're simply overwhelmed with other responsibilities. This was not the case for my mentor. He always made the time. He was always ready and willing to uh, answer all my questions. And I think one of my favorite memories from that lab is just essentially coming to his office when nothing is working in the labs, like nothing is working. What do I do? And I think that's really lovely. So I think the lesson from that lab came from the fact that I had to learn that I should trust my academic environment. If I chose this environment, then I should be confident in the choices I make. So as much as it's important to rely on yourself and also be very self-sufficient, it's also very important that you trust your mentor, you trust your colleagues, and know that they always have your back. So after this scientific endeavor was done, I had to pick a lab where I had to do my master thesis. So I contacted a lab at the University of Oxford in England, and I basically explained the program, and I said, can I come? So this is something that you will see is very common in my academic career. I just contact these labs and say, can I come? And they very happily agree to me coming. So basically, at Oxford, it was a very unique experience, because I think when people think of these very, very big shot institutes such as Cambridge, Oxford, or Stanford, they think of a very uniform image of what it is. It's prestige, it's competition, it's very cutthroat. But for me, that wasn't really the case. I think I really benefited from the fact that I was the least experienced person in a room. So I think that for me was never scary. I never thought, oh, what will these academics think of me if I don't know X, Y, and Z? It was much more, I find it motivating that I had all these people at my disposal and they were just all there. It's very difficult to articulate that feeling that when you're placed in a room where you have people that have gone through the ringer, they are academic achievers in a way that you really want to be. So I think that for me was really incredible and a fascinating experience where I got to contact these people and talk to them face to face, and it's I think it was a lovely experience. So that was sort of my experience with my master's. So that lasted 2 years. So then after that, I always knew that I really wanted to do a PhD, but I think I really knew that I never wanted to take the conventional path. I think a lot of people have these tick boxes of like, I do this and then I do that and then I do that. I don't really have that. I was inspired by the way that the program was structured in a way that allowed exploration and allowed me to gain a lot of experience. So after my master's, I really wanted to do the same thing essentially that I did in my master's, explore different labs, go to different places, and then just essentially see where it takes me. So what ended up happening there is that I was called back by my previous lab at ETH, and they really wanted to finish up the projects and some of the papers. They were really in the ringer, so they basically told me like, could you come back and just
real quick.
Also it's better for them if they have me. If I started the project, then I finish the project. So they asked me to come back, finish up that work, so that we can have these all the data finished for publication. So I came back briefly. Dabbled with also academic writing, and then I think those are one of my, it's not the same when you write a thesis and when you write a summary of your work in your master's and when you actually have to write an academic paper. I was lucky enough that I have done this in my bachelor's, but I think it's very different when I have a full-blown project where multiple people are involved and I have to sort of coordinate and I have to communicate scientifically regarding the data and also put that all in so that it's uniform and everyone's happy with the result. So after that, I thought, okay, I think it's time to challenge myself in a very different way. I understand that the PhD is something that you don't really get a set of tools and you don't know how to navigate that. But I think for me, it was important to be challenged in a way where I'm the single person out. And what I mean by that is I decided to apply to a lab in Japan at the University of Kyoto. So for me, honestly, selfishly, I really wanted to go to Japan because I had so many ties to it in my life. I was always into martial arts. I have a black belt in karate and also fencing. I was very much into fencing. So I think that would be a good place for me to explore a very different environment. So, but mostly it was about being in a place where I thought I had all the wherewithal of understanding science communication and trying to articulate all of that, but suddenly I was in a place where everyone else had a uniform and sort of a way of thinking that was so out of my comfort zone, so out of anything that I had previously experienced. Because if you recall, in the Netherlands, I was exposed to all these different nationalities and this would follow me throughout my academic career. But it's very different where I'm on a completely different continent and a completely different culture, and all of these people are thought differently than what I've been taught in Europe. So I think for me, that really allowed me to become the type of scientist that I'm very proud to be. I was multicultural in the extreme way. I was very much, I had to adapt to learning how to talk to people in both, okay, we have to understand each other culturally, but we also have to understand each other academically. And I think there's loads of challenges that can follow you through that, such as, well, the 9-hour difference between me and my loved ones. So I think there's a lot of isolation in Japan that happens as well when you're from Europe and then you go there. So I think all of that really allowed me to flourish there because I was so focused on myself and so focused on all the growth and lessons that I was exposed to during that time. And then after that project was basically done, so if you're following along, this is basically me moving every 7 months or so. So Japan, I think it was 9 months. So this was the longest that I really spent in one place. So after that, I really wanted to do one last huzzah before the PhD and try to test myself in a different way again. So all of these were okay. So the first challenge after the master thesis was okay, an academic challenge, and then Japan was a cultural and a communication challenge, and then now I wanted to pick a lab that had a very different model organism, a very different technique, and a very different scientific environment to what I'm used to, so that I would be able to trust myself more where I'm actually steering a project. So I'm mostly a scientist that deals with cells. I'm very interested in the mechanisms and how things work and how that sort of ties into the medical field, or a helicopter point of view of what is translational medicine. But here at UCL in London, I'm working in a mouse lab. So this is something that's completely new to me. So every time I sort of put myself in the comfort zone, I go I go away from that lab, and I just leave, and once the project is done, and I'm trying to put myself in an environment. Okay, so if that was comfortable, if I've gotten used to that, then what hadn't I gotten used to? And this was the case for the lab here. So I think, if anything, this is something that I always try to tell people is, when you're choosing science and when you're choosing an academic path, and for me that was, I really wanted to do with a PhD. I really wanted to stay in academia for at least a little bit. I really wanted to become a scientist that knew how to uh, think sort of critically about things, and also be innovative in my own way of thought, and both be independent and autonomous, but also work really well in a team. I think you should take responsibility for your choices in not a scary way. I think if you're confident in the things that you really want to do, I think you should go for it. I think this is very cliche, and a lot of people might say that, well, you can't just go for, there's certain responsibilities, there's certain achievements or goals that you have to do. But I think what UCL really taught me is that there is no timeline, there is no comparison, there is no labels, there's no titles, there's nothing that you can strive for that you aren't already pursuing, if you know what you're doing. So if you ask yourself the very important question of what do I want to do in my academic career, and what do I want to achieve as a scientist or a young professional, then you're halfway there. And I think the lesson, that all sort of all-encompassing lesson, is through all my challenges and all my experiences, is that I've learned that you're going to be tired. You're always going to be tired. But if you're going to be tired, you should be tired doing the things that you really love. So there's no, I think a lot of people say like, oh, it gets easier. It gets more comfortable, but it never gets easier. It only gets more challenging. And that's when you know that you're doing it right. So if you're going to be tired, at least do the things that you really want to do. So I think that concludes my very well, Kai said a bit more, it was a bit more complimentary. I think my academic path is very weird and not something that I would recommend for the faint of heart, for sure. But yeah, thank you all for your attention, and I'm very happy again to be called to do this talk, and also to take any of your questions.
Absolutely love it. And while we wait for some questions, I'd just say, first off, I have to rewatch this after it's all said and done, because my mind right now is somewhere completely different. But I loved it. I might be biased in this case because there are some parallels between, I think, our journeys. But one of the things that struck out to me is that it's a benefit of being the least experienced person in the room. And I myself, at this point, I'm getting pretty much old compared to the current competitors in the 3MT and everything else. So I think that's one of those lessons that should be not just taught, like instilled into every single person from a very young age, including high school. Just go out there, and everyone was a beginner at some point. It doesn't matter if they're a pro athlete, academic, or whatever. And I had the exact same situation where I got into my first lab, and I knew basically that I'm an idiot at that point because, well, I just finished my bachelor's and I know nothing. But
Mhm.
I saw it as a strength, and it built from there. And anytime I felt smart in the room, I just entered the room next to it to feel stupid again. And that's the best feeling ever, although it can, like you said, kind of be tiring and weird and everything else. But it's just amazing. Thanks for sharing.
No, yeah, I absolutely agree. Yeah. I think I think people get scared of that. I think a lot of people, at least what I've experienced with my peers and colleagues, I think they really think that, well, the professor's going to think I'm dumb. Well, no, they know that you're starting from scratch and they know that you're just a student, or later on you can be just a PhD student, or later on you can be a postdoc. Like it never really ends. So you're asking questions that are relevant for your level, and that's completely normal.
Exactly, exactly. Couldn't have said it better myself. But are there any questions in the audience for Ayla before we move on? But yeah, until we wait a couple more minutes, Ayla, just quickly tell them where they can find you, where they can stalk you, bother you if they want to pick your brain, if you're up for it, of course, with consent, of course. But if you're open to it, kind of where can they find you, and how to reach you, where to follow your journey, if nothing else?
Yeah, well, I'm pretty much, I think, well, I've gotten better at it, but I'm not really on social media at all. I try to stay away from that, but I do remember my password every 6 months or so on LinkedIn. So it's the same handle as you can see here, Ajla Džanko. And but yeah, I'm very happy to connect with people and also connect with like-minded people, so they can reach me there. So hopefully, I mean, like I said, I've gotten better at it, but I can't really promise that I'm always
But
going to be there.
now it's a public promise. You know that because you said it in front of everyone, and this is going to go online. So everyone watching this after it's recorded in video format, she gave us her word. No, I'm just kidding, but yeah.
No, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was a pleasure. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It was, yeah.
The pleasure's all mine, and I hope everyone enjoyed it as much as I did. And so, with that, I don't see any questions in the chat. Let me just double check. Did I miss anything? Nope. Alrighty then. So we move on to the 3MT ceremony part. Let me just set everything up. It'll take me a second or two. Just bear with me because I'm not in my usual setup, so not looking for any excuses. I'm just trying not to mess everything up in front of me. And just give me a second to set this up on the side so I can actually see what the hell I'm doing. Alrighty then, the moment you've all waited for, or at least I hope you did, which is our 3MT ceremony. It's the 2025th edition, it's our sixth iteration, and Bajas, once again, is one of our big partners, and we wouldn't be able to do it without them. So big shout out and big thank you to Bajas as every year. And we move on to a couple of things I just want to pinpoint, which is a broad overview of the actual 3MT in 2025. We had 21 participants in total, and this is the second year running that we had quite a bit more women than men in our competition. It's 62%, which we're always happy to see. A total of 103 judges. At first, this might look like overkill, and if I'm being honest, it might be. But one of the reasons we have so many judges is to kind of avoid any bias when it comes to professions, when it comes to nationalities, or anything else. We try to have as many as possible, and I'm very happy that a lot of these people return year after year to help us make the 3MT possible, because without them, it truly wouldn't be a possibility of doing anything like this. We also have a lot of evaluations per candidate. We aim for 30 evaluations for every single one of you. That's in theory. In praxis, we end up getting about 20, 25-ish because some judges don't manage to evaluate and so on. Once again, we try and be very thorough, avoid bias. They're also schooled on many different things, or like we give them information on how to avoid systemic bias, how to avoid like the val factor, and so on and so forth. A lot of the things I already mentioned in our info session, so I'm not gonna talk about that anymore. In total, we have a big social media presence with the 3MT as well, 54,000 impressions, which translated 22,000 views, which we're always happy about. And with that, without any further ado, we go from the start and we build up through our academic categories. This is the first year we had high school students as well. An idea that was born, I believe, in 2021. I fondly remember Eddie giving a talk after the 3MT ceremony, which Ajla and I participated in as well. And he mentioned that he would want to include high school students as well. Well, it took us a couple of years, but we finally managed to do so, although it is still in a trial state. So there is just one prize for this category. So there's basically just a winner, and we also limited it to the seniors of high school, so the third and fourth grade in Bosnian schooling system. And without any spectacular thing, we go into Selma. We have Selma Velagic. Congratulations. You are the high school winner of this year of the inaugural 3MT competition for high schoolers. Congratulations. A lot of judges rated you very highly, and we're happy to see it. Hey there, real quick. Future and smarter guys checking in. I made a mistake during the live presentation. Now don't worry, it's nothing too serious. I just flipped around the first two academic categories. Meaning, the video or the rest of the video you're about to watch where I announce Emina, Tea, and Hanka as the bachelor students, they actually competed in the masters. Whereas Sanin, Eva, and Ilma were or are actually bachelor students. So just switch those around. I will switch them in editing as well, making notes. Once again, apologies for the mistake. Not sure how it happened. It's just dumb luck as well. And I hope you enjoy the rest of the video. Thanks. Moving on to the first academic category that has been around since 2021. We have in third place Hanka Golavljev. Congratulations, Hanka. It's a prize of 500 Bosnian marks. In second place, we have Tea Zolcic, which is a returning 3MT competitor, which I'm very happy to see. Congratulations, Tea, 1,000 Bosnian marks. And in first place, we have Emina Fezano-Zunovic. So an all-women's lineup. I just mentioned that we have 63% of women. And in the bachelor's category, they just cleaned house. Simple as that. Moving on to the master's category, where in third place, we have Ilma Hodzic with, once again, 500 bond. Congratulations, Ilma. Moving on to our second place in the master's category with Iva Jankovic. And this year's winner in the master's category is Sanin Halilhodzic. Congratulations to all three of you. Lastly, the PhD category, we climbed the ranks. We got to the top of the academic ladder. We got to there where Ajla is going next, where some of you might be going within the next couple of years as well. And in the PhD category, in third, we have Benjamin Šabić. And this time around, the prize is double. So 1,000 Bosnian marks for the third place. In second, we have Martina Matuško. And in first, our this year's winner of the PhD category is Kenan Krakovic. Congratulations to the three of you. And last but not least, we have one more prize, which is the public vote based on the number of likes on your YouTube videos, which has a prize pool of 400 Bosnian marks. And for that, we have Iva Maksimovic, who had, I believe, 812 likes, if I recall correctly. Maybe it has changed, but our cutoff was, I believe, on the Monday after the evaluations of the judges ended. And one last thing that I want to briefly touch upon before we go into breakout rooms and get a chance to kind of talk with each other and meet each other on a more personal level, the next step. So what is coming? What are we expecting? Which is first, you're going to be contacted within the next week, all of the winners regarding that. So you can kind of give us your personal info and so on and so forth. Keep your social security numbers. Don't share those if anyone asks. No, I'm just kidding. As mentioned at the start, we have a BHFF researcher meetup, which is in Sarajevo. Now, this is not an obligatory event, so keep that in mind. We do have an event organized, which is next Saturday. So if you are around, feel free to join us. The actual submission link or the sign up link should be in the chat. Hopefully you can see and find it. The evaluation form will be sent to you within the next couple of days as well. Once again, you're going to see my name pop up there, hopefully. And the deadline is probably going to be a week or so. The 22nd is kind of a preliminary date, so I'm not going to force you to do it, but we would really appreciate if you kind of give us some feedback on how we can improve for next year. Feedback on your presentation. Now, this is something we try to do every single year. We try to basically at this point force judges to give you actual written feedback when they submit their forms, because I'm very into science communication. I know how devastating feedback can be because, well, you'd sometimes take it personally, but I also know the importance of feedback and actually having stuff written down so you can improve based on that. Because if you just see your grades and if you just see your score, there's no source behind it. So with that, if you'd like to receive feedback, please do contact us on the 3MT email. By now, you should hopefully know it. It's 3MT@BH Future Foundation, I believe. I say you should know it, and I don't even know it. So you probably know which email. You've gotten a bunch of, or a dozen of emails from my end from that to this point. And lastly, the Vera Schneider Award, which is something, or not in 2024, I apologize, typo, 2025, which will start in September and October of this year. We have a couple of positive changes there as well. We have a couple of things I can't yet address, I believe, because they're still in the works, but it will be bigger and it will be better than in 2024. With that, I would like to thank everyone for attending. I would like to close this official part, and then if you'd like, we can go into breakout rooms and we can kind of get to know each other, discuss things further, and so on and so forth. Thank you everyone for being part of the 3MT. Thank you everyone for joining us today. And with that, the actual recording part is over.